just one question to answer.
All of it feels off. Then you watch it again, and you can't quite put your finger on it. Something there.
I'm thinking of ending things.
Like that, for example. We hear this inner monologue from who?
Jake can be controlling. You can't allow him to control you.
We hear his name over and over again throughout this film.
I'm thinking of ending things.
Huh? Did you say something?
This is all I needed to realize that I was really going to like this film. However, it took me reading the book and rewatching this movie multiple times to fully get the twist. One that is hinted at in the very first scene when the sun is still out and before they ever set off on this trip to Jake's parents. Though if you've only seen the movie, the twist here is pretty difficult to really get a grasp on anyway, because this is a Charlie Kaufman film to begin with, the same guy that also made Adaptation, being John Malkovich, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but it isn't just his influence that makes it feel so strange, because the book itself also feels like a fever dream, which is why I want to leave you the joy of reading it for yourself and instead just explain my understanding from the book to this weird adaptation of that story. I know this is a bit different than my typical intro, but this story is a lot. Not only will this be the weirdest twist I've ever covered, but also one of the most depressing. There's a reason so much of what happens is presented in this ethereal way, and there's also a reason I believe a story like this should be shared. Luckily for us, we will get to unravel this story together, so in the end we can look back and understand what changes may need to take place in our own lives. I've been thinking of changing how I sleep for a while. And thankfully it was 3 a.m. and no one was around, but being able to take a short nap anywhere is more important than what you might think. I've been thinking about Manta Sleep for a while now, especially since it means that I can finally trade in my sleeping hat that, yes, I have been wearing for several months now to cover my eyes so I can at least take some naps, but now I can get rid of it and actually have a good, comfortable mask to where I can sleep so good without my eyes constantly being squeezed throughout the night. If you're thinking of ending your poor sleep schedule by actually taking more naps, which I do highly recommend that you do, you can use my link down below to get your own mask from Manta Sleep and save 10%. Seriously, don't underestimate the power of a short nap and go and give Manta Sleep a try.
You want to stop for a coffee or something?
Because this is going to be a long trip out into the middle of nowhere, but what better way to get to know someone other than being trapped in a car in the middle of a snowstorm and then driving deep into the lonely farmland with them? Even if you don't have much to say, this makes for a good time to listen because the audio throughout this film is also telling a story, whether it's through long stretches of dialogue, a purposely muffled line, or even these scenes that somehow perfectly blend together between the car ride and this random old man eating breakfast. All of it is here for a reason, even if you don't get it the first time or many times after. Looking at everything that has happened so far, it really doesn't seem like much. We know that some guy named Jake has picked up his girlfriend and they're on a trip now to have dinner with his parents. We still don't know her name, but we know that she has been thinking about ending things with Jake after they've been together for a month, 6 weeks. She doesn't even know, just that it feels like it has been a very long time. We also don't know who the random man is that we keep cutting to as he's seemingly just preparing for another day of work. And while we've yet to meet Jake's parents, we do find out that his mother hasn't been feeling well. That is why he basically recommends that they need to stop for a snack before going to dinner.
I'm not a metaphorical type
It's just
gal.
that one speaks to me.
Thankfully, though, from bringing up Wordsworth and how he wrote several poems to a woman named Lucy, we finally get the name of our main character. Lucy, Jake's girlfriend of the last several weeks, who is wearing a red coat and an orange and black sweater with red glasses, who somehow receives a phone call from herself. Now, it isn't really explained here in the film, but this has been happening for a few weeks now. Often late at night, Lucy will get a phone call from her own number, but it's always some man on the other end, typically repeating the same cryptic message or leaving the same cryptic message after Lucy stopped answering the calls, like how she does here and just lets it go to voicemail. Which is yet another metaphor that we have waiting for us, and we'll get there. But first, we have to deal with the metaphor of a new swing set out in front of an abandoned house. And Lucy thinks that it's odd, but Jake doesn't even see it, so instead he just offers an explanation of why it might be out there. Though I would like to hear yours. He suggests that maybe someone bought the house and then moved the swing set out there first to give the kids something to play on while they go in and try to fix up the home. Jake has snow chains for the tires just in case the roads get too bad, so there's no need to turn back, there's no need for Lucy to worry. She will be able to make it back tonight to write her paper on
Rabies infection in the sensory dorsal root ganglion neurons.
The trigeminal ganglia as well, right?
Jake is clearly a smart guy. He's well-rounded in many different fields, and I'm sure many of you are extremely confused, as you likely remember Lucy being either a painter or a poet. You might also be confused about why we keep seeing this old janitor over and over again, or why when Jake reaches to turn on the radio in the car, we instead see the old man turning on his radio in the truck. And while it doesn't make much sense now, at this point on my first watch, I was under the impression that we're watching a memory that the janitor is having. That the janitor is Jake himself, and that this is potentially the trip that he and his future wife first took to meet his parents. All of this being brought back to him by a song over the radio, a song from the musical Oklahoma that just so happens to be the same musical that they are currently practicing in the school that the old man janitor Jake works in. And to further the point of the janitor being Jake, Jake claims that he isn't a big fan of musical theater, even though he can name a decent list of musicals off the top of his head. He says that Oklahoma is the one that he knows best because they do it every few years.
Wait, who does it every few years? What was the last road trip I took? I should remember, but I don't.
And exactly who this is, I'm not sure. After Jake asks his girlfriend if she likes the landscape, she says yes, it's beautiful and melancholy, which Jake then suggests that that's the poet in her that likes it. And he then requests that she share one of her latest poems that she's been working on. And while reluctant at first, she does give in and shares her latest work, Bone Dog, as she also looks right at us through the back window. Now, Bone Dog is a real poem by Eva HD and can be found in her collection, The Natural Hustle, who has not only written many other poems, but is also the writer of a recent short film called How to Shoot a Ghost, which stars Jessie Buckley and is also directed by Charlie Kaufman. Plus, she also wrote and starred in another Charlie Kaufman short film that you can find here on YouTube called Jackals and Fireflies. I say all of this because of the impact that this poem has in the story and on the audience. I've seen many people mention their love for this poem when doing my research, as well as quite a few people bringing it up when I said I was going to cover this movie, which is why I did my hardest to reach out to Eva HD to get permission to read the entire poem here in this video, and never heard anything back. So instead, I'm going to read just the first few lines and then link everything down in the description for you to go and read on your own. Coming home is terrible. Whether the dogs lick your face or not, whether you have a wife or just a wife-shaped loneliness waiting for you. Coming home is terribly lonely. So that you think of the oppressive barometric pressure back where you have just come from with fondness, because everything's worse once you're home.
It's like you wrote it about me.
I guess that's what one hopes for when writing a poem.
The conversation spirals a bit at this point, from watching too many movies to that being a waste of time, back to rabies and viruses either being monstrous or just wanting to live like everything else. And then a question of does everything want to live? What about certain insects and aphids that blow themselves up? Jake would believe that they are a sign that not everything wants to live, but Lucy would argue that because they do this for the good of their community, it isn't that they do it because they don't want to live, but instead to keep others around them living. And that's if we believe that they want anything at all. And there to greet them is Jake's mom in the window, incessantly waving at them. Something I do a lot. Completely normal if you ask me, but it seems like a bit much for Jake right away, as he would like to at least stretch his legs by walking around for a moment and giving a little tour of the farm. All while his mom continues to wave. They look at the sheep, both alive and dead. Then they look at where the pigs were before they got infested with maggots that were eating them alive. And that's it. That's the whole tour.
Everything has to die. That's the truth.
Lucy doesn't just leave this as the odd moment that it is, but instead we hear her ponder the inevitability of death and the uniqueness that we have as humans to even do that. All while other animals just live in the present, we struggle to even do that much. Either we're always looking back at the past or having hope for our future. Finally, they enter into Jake's parents' home, and his parents are nowhere to be found. After a lot of yelling for them, Jake's dad yells back from upstairs that they will be down in just a bit. Jake then does the gentlemanly thing and gives Lucy his slippers to wear, as this is a no-shoes house. And two things stand out to me here. First is that Jake is referring to them as zapatillas, which we see written on one of the dry erase boards earlier behind Janitor Jake. Stuff is weird here in the house, but weirder still is the fact that you miss the change in Lucy, if that is her name. Her sweater is no longer orange and black, but instead is now black and purple, maybe? It's clearly not orange. Her hair is also different than what it was in the car. And all I can think is, what else have I already missed that has changed about her, or even the setting around them?
Your parents knew we were coming, right?
Of course they did, and they're excited. I guess that's why they're taking their time and getting ready upstairs, but it's the door to the downstairs that has caught her attention as she slowly continues questioning what is down there and slowly walks closer and closer to it, making Jake very uncomfortable as he admits that he hates the basement. It's scary. Lurching for the door, Jake stands in the way and jokes again not to go in there. He's hiding in there. Who? And why are there scratches on the door? A dog. Duh. Even though the scratches are 5 foot high, it is just Jimmy the border collie, who so happens to be and has been in the room that they were just in this entire time.
Here they come.
It's Toni Collette and David Thewlis, or the mom from The Sixth Sense and Hereditary, with Remus Lupin. Here they are. You see them. You think they will look exactly like this throughout the rest of Jake and his girlfriend's stay? Otherwise, you will feel left behind, just as the young woman does when she turns to follow Jake's parents to the dining room and finds the table is already set and everyone is already waiting on her. I say young woman as, again, I don't know who this is. Her clothes are almost the same, but am I going crazy?
So, Jake tells us you're a painter.
Yes.
Either way, she shares some of the pictures of her paintings with his parents, and they don't seem to be able to understand the point of them. They then ask her about her studies on quantum physics, which both her and Jake are studying together. They then skip over to how Jake and her met at a trivia night at a college bar, and Jake's mom exclaims how much Jake loves trivia and how even growing up he knew every single answer in the trivia game that they had that just so happened to be the Genius Edition. But Jake has to correct her here because it wasn't Genius, it was the Genus Edition. So she then jokes about saying genius wrong her entire life, but of course she's no genius. And Jake again corrects her on this, making us wonder if she's joking here or not.
Why didn't we get the genius?
No!
Genius Edition.
Maybe that's because they're caricatures of themselves here, either from being on their best behavior since they're meeting their son's girlfriend for the first time, or this is all just Janitor Jake doing his best to remember how it all went. Though it does even take some help from Jake for Lucy to share how they met and the exact details of that night. All of this comes straight from the book, and it's basically that Lucy goes with one of her friends to a college bar that just so happened to be doing a trivia night that night, and there is where Jake was competing with some of his friends on their team called Brezhnev's Eyebrows, and one thing leads to another, and Lucy asks about the team name, and then they talk about Jake for a little bit, and then eventually has a moment right before she leaves that Jake stops her and gives her his number. And in the book, I'm pretty sure that he slips a note with his number into her purse, I believe.
Can't even remember how long ago it is.
Dinner is over and Lucy again has slightly different clothes. Jake's father's band-aid on his forehead has also moved, and the dog is both there and not there at the same time. I genuinely would like to include every little detail that I can in this, but when so much is happening all at once and then changing slightly scene to scene, it really does make me wonder if I'm just looking at all of it too closely or if I'm dreaming up half of this, which really is the point, to give that ever-changing, dreamy feel. Just like when Lucy is looking at a childhood picture of what at first seems to be her, but on a second closer examination must be Jake. No longer are we the only ones questioning what is happening, but again, all questions cease as the story must move forward. Jake's parents enter with his favorite dessert, a chocolate Yule log, and they both seem as happy as can be, even if they are wearing something completely different now. And for the last several minutes, we have been able to hear them in the background. It seems like an argument, the type that is muffled by a child's bedroom door late at night. Maybe that's why Jake's mother is now having an issue with her ears. All the yelling has got her tinnitus acting up. At first, you think she meant tinnitus, but instead of a buzzing that she hears all the time, she claims it's whispers. Potentially they're trying to share the secrets of the universe with her, or maybe even give her stock market tips. Or maybe even it's Yvonne calling to leave that cryptic voicemail. But with how Jake's mom reacts to the ringing of the phone, probably not.
Feel my fear growing. Now is the time for the answer. Just one question.
After she tells everyone that her friend was just calling to say hi and was only checking in, which is extra odd without the additional context from the book. But even with the extra context, the rest of this scene is still very odd, from the little slip-ups in dialogue like Jake claiming that he has the tire chains in the bed instead of in the trunk, to his mother asking if he remembers his 50th birthday, and then to Jake's father talking about how Jake's mother was when she was younger and that he now misses her terribly.
So Lucia is studying gerontology.
You see, I knew that I wasn't crazy. She is different. No longer Lucy or Louisa or Yvonne, but now is Lucia. Also now studying the process of aging instead of all the other things that she has claimed and been described as doing. And even though this is very odd, my favorite moment from all of this is when Lucia jumps up from her seat and runs over to the window to look at the storm, telling Jake that it does look like it's getting really bad out there and it might be best for them to leave. They all just disappeared. It is just her now in the room, meaning that she has the opportunity to check the rest of the house out for herself, but also she is now back to wearing the brown version of the sweater. Does that mean that she's no longer Lucia? And I swear that the color of the walls has changed. Upstairs, Lucy can't seem to find Jake. He claims that he was up here but is nowhere to be found, not even in his childhood bedroom as it says on the door. What is in here is an insane amount of detail, all of which is important for what has happened and what will happen in this story. Like Jimmy the dog's urn on one of the shelves, even though we just saw him at the front door right before Lucy came up here. And the book full of William Wordsworth poems stacked right on top of a bunch of strangely labeled DVDs. good taste. But it's the open book at the foot of the bed that Lucy picks up first. A book of poetry by Eva H.D., where she begins to read the poem that she claims she wrote and had recited in full earlier in the car.
Coming home is terribly lonely.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But not break completely, as Lucy only appears to be concerned at the sudden appearance of Jake's father instead of the change of appearance of his entire person. He's aged quite a bit from when we last saw him at dinner, though it isn't just his looks that have changed, but also his mind too, as he tells Lucy that he hopes for the day when he will no longer remember, that he keeps forgetting everything. That's the reason that everything in the house is labeled just like the sign on Jake's childhood bedroom door. Lucy hasn't noticed the labels, but Jake's father tells her that from now on she will. Then he sets off to find her something to wear tonight, as he believes that her and Jake will be staying. And it's as he leaves that Lucy finds her way into Mom's room, where Jake is caring for his now very aged mother, who is talking about how amazing Jake is and always has been. Lucy even tells him that it's sweet the way that he actually cares for his mother instead of just putting her in a warehouse.
Feels like no one sees the good things you do.
She then gives him a kiss on the cheek and heads to wait for him downstairs, where we then see her pass down the stairs over and over and over again as she is still thinking about ending this whole relationship. But when she finally does make it to the bottom, Jake is already there with his father, who did find her something to wear. A nightgown, according to the label. But then she tries to explain that she needs to get home tonight, and everyone is just confused by her words, until Jake explains to his father that she's a waitress, and they met at the restaurant that she works at when he asked about the Santa Fe burger. And I guess that means that she is now Yvonne, the name of the waitress from the movie that Janitor Jake was watching earlier. They then leave Yvonne to go to the bathroom before his father can have another accident, and then Jake's mother walks by and grabs the old nightgown that is covered in Jake's baby food, because she is now younger than we have seen her this entire time. It's her busy young mom self that requests help from Yvonne to take the dirty nightgown down to the washer in the basement to get it washed. But she isn't sure if Jake would be all right with her going down there.
Jake can be controlling. You can't allow him to control you.
Everything that happens next is so good. Despite her hesitance, Yvonne opens the door and begins to descend the stairs, all while Jake tries to stop her from the top, but it sounds like he is much farther away than that. With a simple answer that she is okay and will be up shortly, Jake is gone, and the falling snow is there in his place. Down here in the basement, the washer is already running, and inside are many of the same uniforms that we have seen the janitor in while he cleans at the school. But in a different room is something a bit more concerning for Yvonne. It's paintings, the same ones that she was showing Jake's parents earlier at dinner, paintings that clearly she didn't originally paint, as they are all labeled Ralph Albert Blacklocks. All but the canvas ones that lay on the floor, those are all of Jake's old paintings that he did when he was young. Her phone is also waiting for her down here, but now every single picture that she shared earlier, every single picture that was on the phone is gone. Louisa is also calling, and she answers this call right away to hear the same cryptic message again. Louisa makes her way back upstairs, her dress now having changed along with Jake's mother, who he claims is just sleeping, out like a light, but she isn't too sure. So she asks him about his father, who enters from the kitchen after trying to fix the disposal. Unlike Jake's mother, now Jake's father looks younger than we have seen him all night. And as he steps into the living room, he tells her goodbye, giving her a hug, and then Jake and Louisa head off into the growing blizzard.
I don't remember Jake helping his mother with the dishes.
She also doesn't remember how much she had to drink tonight, because according to Jake, she had quite a bit of wine and probably just didn't realize it because his father kept topping off her glass, which leads to him calling her a woman under the influence. And it's this that leads us into the realization that Jake's girlfriend has changed again. Her coat no longer being red as it was in the beginning, but is now blue. And her studies now being film, with a woman under the influence being a film that she knows very well. But again, her critique she gives of the film isn't her own. It's that of Pauline Kael, who we did see a book by in Jake's old bedroom. The conversation from here is very up and down, because we go from a movie review to Jake really struggling with the lie of it all, as he calls it.
It's going to get better, that it's never too late, that God has a plan for you.
But even with him being on the edge of a complete mental break, it is nearly brushed over by him asking if she wants to go and get something sweet. And luckily for them, there is a Tulsi town not far away, which they joke about a little bit, until Lucy brings his mother into it. Then we go back down into the struggle as they discuss the former psychological idea of pointing to the mother for the issues within a child's life, and Jake doesn't like this line of thinking, but he does admit that it would be much easier to blame someone else for any problems that one may have. The service here is the same as the rest of the movie. Odd. Jake is nervous to order because some of the girls that work here he knows from the school, and actually we have seen all three of these girls at different points already, but from the perspective of the janitor. But it's the first two that come out that make Jake uncomfortable, as he has Louisa order for them, but when she tries, the girls just want to talk to Jake, and then they go off to giggle to each other. It's the other girl that actually takes their order that we saw earlier when Jake was describing certain outcasts that he sees walking the halls, and she apologizes for the smell. They're varnishing in the back.
I know this girl. I've seen her somewhere. I've seen her before. Her face.
The girl calls Louisa both pretty and kind, and then struggles with the entire concept that someone could be both. But what does she know? She's not a psychologist. She's just a student who works at Tulsi Town part-time, who also has some rash on her arms. The same rash that we can see on Jake's hand when he pays her for the ice creams.
You don't have to go
I don't have to go where?
forward in time.
Both of them hardly even touch their ice creams. It's just way too sweet and cold. Once more, the conversation in the car is like that of a manic depressant, back and forth, up and down, from one extreme to another. Jake sings the Tulsi Town theme song and then switches over to talking about a book that we saw in his childhood bedroom by David Foster Wallace. Someone who, as Jake puts it, everyone knows killed himself, allowing Jake to again discuss the idea of life and death and suicide until he reaches the conclusion of his own thought, and then is asked if he has ever read Guy Debord.
Debord says the spectacle cannot be understood as a mere visual deception.
Moments like that are when I have to ask myself, is it me? Am I losing it? Did I see what I just thought I saw? What other things have I missed so far from just watching this movie? It's only for a few seconds, but the girl that we have typically come to call Lucy is switched out for a different person completely. Instead, it's now Yvonne in the seat. That is the girl that we saw in the movie that the janitor was watching earlier in the film, and then just out of nowhere she switched back over to who we know as Lucy like nothing ever happened. Only now, Jake is referring to her as Ames, and even she thinks that that doesn't sound right. Is her name Amy, or the uneaten ice creams are now melting, and this bothers Jake greatly to the point that he has another outburst of anger, but he has a plan to get rid of them. He knows of a road which he then takes against Ames' will, and before long they are pulling into the place that Jake knows very well. His old high school, the same high school that he has worked at for many years now.
Everything is tinged. That's the thing you have to realize.
Amy, or Lucy, switch from being a physicist to a poet within only 2 sentences, just as Jake's hands switch again as he holds on to the steering wheel. They aren't alone here. The truck of the janitor sits out front, but luckily Jake is able to finally get rid of those awful ice cream cups. Then when he returns, he turns off the car so they could just sit there for a moment. It's very odd, and it irritates his girlfriend to the point that she actually speaks up. All night long, she has had to repeat that she needs to be home tonight and has only been ignored, but no longer. And this is where a big shift happens, because also all night long, Jake has been the one to mention different little things here and there to keep her politically correct, which normally stopped her entire flow of thought and had her coming back around to clarify and agree with him, except for here when she is the one to do it to him. They have a whole argument about the song Baby It's Cold Outside, which ends with Jake ultimately agreeing with her, then apologizing to her and sealing it with a kiss.
Jesus. What?
This is why she eventually gets out of the car to yell for Jake, but unknowingly locks herself out, meaning that she now only has one option: to follow the footprints in the snow and go inside. She calls for Jake, but all she finds is the janitor, leaving her trapped in a near-perfect place outside of the Lost and Found, where she is then found by the janitor, a man who looks confused to see her here. She tells him that she is here to find her boyfriend and maybe he can help. If she could just find him, then they can get out of here. But without moving his mouth, his voice is heard like an echo from far away as he then asks her what her boyfriend looks like. And we get one of my favorite lines in the entire movie.
Hard to describe people. It was so long ago, I barely remember.
She claims that describing him is like trying to describe a mosquito that bit her 40 years ago, and then ask if he's seen anyone like that. Though he hasn't. He hasn't seen anyone except for her. He sees her. And I love that line. She then tells him that she's worried about Jake, but he assures her that if he's here, he is safe. They then share a hug for a moment, and she asks for permission to look around for him, which is fine with him, only it would be best if she removed her wet shoes since he just cleaned the floors. Instead, she can wear his slippers.
They're yours.
With her rejection comes acceptance from both herself and Jake here. Both of them understand that all of this is headed to the end, but at this point, they are both all right with that. Which is why from here, the movie really spirals into what is happening territory, as when Lucy finds the younger Jake, we then get a full 5-minute interpretive dance sequence where other versions of Lucy and Jake step in and play out their relationship for us. Essentially, they start out strong, they're enjoying life, they're in sync with one another to the point that they get married, and just before the kiss, a janitor appears to take Jake away and then takes Lucy for himself. They then struggle back and forth until she's able to run away to the gym, where a snowstorm stops her from going too far on her own, and the janitor catches up, but then Jake is now back, and they have a big fight back and forth, with Jake ultimately being stabbed in the chest by the janitor, who then takes Lucy away. Got it? It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. Then the real Lucy and Jake step into frame for a moment and go their separate ways, leaving our old man janitor Jake to clean up the mess in the gym. We then see him finish his day's work, change clothes, and head out to his truck, but he stops himself just before he turns it on. Tulsi Town isn't a real ice cream chain, just like everything else we have seen so far, but the idea is real. The idea of a perfect place that is always open, a little spot anyone can stop at and get a cup of happiness, only for it to be too much, too sweet, and served by people. Connection is needed. That can't stop us. The assumption that everyone is out to hurt you is far more dangerous. That is what will lead you here.
Come. Join me.
Jake follows the maggot-infested pig back inside, or at least that's what we see him do, as we also see an animated pig that is voiced by Oliver Platt, who delivers some of the most complex lines in the film. He says, "It's not bad once you stop feeling sorry for yourself because you're just a pig," or even worse, a pig infested with maggots. Someone has to be a pig infested with maggots, right? It might as well be you. It's the luck of the draw. You play the hand you're dealt. You make lemonade. You move on. You don't worry about a thing. Behind it all sounds like the Tulsi Town theme song is playing in reverse, and maybe that's the song that Jake is referring to when he says that it always made him cry. The pig agrees, and Jake calls him kind, but the pig says that he's just evolving, even now, as a ghost, as a memory, the same way that Jake will.
Thank you. I accept it all.
The end is here, and Jake accepts it all. He delivers a speech similar to a film that we saw earlier in his childhood bedroom, A Beautiful Mind, and then he sings a song from Oklahoma, both of them beautiful in their own ways, but both being a big moment for him to finally be in the spotlight, something that he was smart enough to have achieved on his own, but never took the steps to claim for himself. All of it a wishful memory of chances long past. Frozen and no more. The film ends very close to where our story started, focused on a lone truck in the parking lot of the school that Jake worked at for many years. After a long life of many sorrows, lost and abandoned friendships, futile efforts at success, and countless other problems that we all face, Jake gave up. His conversations in the car with the woman that he wished he would have had the courage to ask out so long ago told us what was on his mind, how he believed it was already far too late for him to make any change, how despite him always hearing the motivational quotes about life getting better, he was no longer motivated by them. The opening line of the film,
I'm thinking of ending things.
even here in his own mind, the idea that no one wanted to be around him is so strong that the fictional characters of his own story are constantly thinking the same thing. I know that it's easier said than done, but I believe even Jake would say the exact same thing. Take those chances. Speak to the others around you and stop waiting for something to change. Because nothing changes if nothing changes within you.
It's good to remind yourself the world's larger than the inside of your own head.
And I know that you came here for a twist analysis, and I'm sure that you understand the movie much better now after going through this whole video, but when it comes to a story like this, hopefully you can see why it is important to be shared. This is in no way a perfect twist. It's hardly even there in just the movie on its own. It takes the outside influence of the book to really understand what all is happening with Jake. But that doesn't change the impact of this story. And so I hope that if you made it to this point in this video, that you don't just take something like this for granted, that you don't just do what many of us have done in the past and laugh it off going, ha ha ha, could never be me. If this is you in any way, like, I understand. Nothing is going to change if you keep waiting around hoping that one day it will just be different. You have got to change. You've got to speak up. You got to say something, or else you end up here, alone in a truck, without the motivation to ever turn it back on. And I always hate having to switch up at the end of a video to go from such a serious topic over to, haha, everything's great, but everything's pretty good. If you know anybody that you think might need to get that message, like, speak up to them, go and talk to them. You could send them this video. Hopefully they'll make it through. I'm sure that this will be kind of long, but I just hope that you could see how much effort I put into this video, because I do believe that topics like this are very serious and should be handled as such. Honestly, I just thank you for watching to the end of that, to the end of this. That's awesome. You're awesome. I'm super glad that you're here. I don't know how much of this stuff goes into the end of the video until I edit the video, but you gotta know, I always have fun making these videos, even when they do get serious. I understand that it can help, and that it does help a lot of you, and it also helps me because I get to get my thoughts out there, and trying to help someone else is always awesome. Also, there is a lot of stuff in this movie that I tried to leave a little cryptic with exactly what it means, and I just gave you the majority of my interpretations on how I took a lot of what is happening in the story, but the book is very clear with what is happening at the end, and there is still a really neat twist of it all in the very final section of the book that you definitely need to go and try out for yourself. But if there's anything in this video that you disagree with or think could be taken in another direction, let me know down in the comments. Once more, this is one of those weird movies that I've been excited to cover, just like with TimeCrimes, even though you can't see the poster very well right now. I do want to cover more weird, scary movies, regardless if they have a twist or whatever is going on in them. And so if you have any more that you would like to see me cover, let me know.